Hail, hail. Thank you for downloading and listening to the Celtic Lifetime 11 podcast, brought to you by CelticUnderground.net. Welcome back, it's Antony Murray here again for another podcast. Today my guest is Lachie Mor, who has been writing for and contributing to the CelticUnderground.net website since the internet was in black and white. That being the case, he has a huge range of players to choose from for his dream team, and I think even previous guests would admit that Lachie's team would probably give theirs a bit of a doing. Importantly, he's obviously hiding behind a Twitter pseudonym. So fans of the show are asking, whoa, does his real name meet the essential criteria to be on this show? The Saint's first name and Irish second name. I can tell you that for the fourth episode in a row, he does. Yes, a very famous Saint, and a name that he would claim is Scottish, but I'm staring at a website right now called IrishRoots.com, and they very much claim it's Irish. So yeah, he fits the bill. Any other papish paddies that want to appear on the show, get in touch. Hello, welcome to the show, Lachie Mor. How are you doing, Lachie?
I'm very well, thank you.
Enjoying the early summer?
Well, it's actually, the weather here is not as good as it was in the spring. We've had more rain in the last couple of weeks than we had for six to 8 weeks before that. It's still nice, though.
You're here to give us your Lifetime 11. Listeners of the show will already know what this entails. You picking your dream team of Celtic players that you've witnessed in your own life. You're our oldest guest so far, so you have the potential to be the most interesting and most varied team that many of our listeners will not have seen. Though I'm going to guess now that Larsson's it anyway, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. You get to choose your formation. What formation is it?
4-3-3.
4-3-3. So quite aggressive, quite attacking. Yep, I'm already looking forward to this. And we'll just jump straight into it. As always, we start with our goalkeeper. You've seen many a goalkeeper. Who do you think is your number one?
Ronnie Simpson.
Ronnie Simpson. So a Lisbon Lion from the top. Listeners are like, oh, he really is old.
That's true, yeah. I don't remember his debut in football. He was 14 years and 3 months or something when he made his senior debut for Queen's Park.
So he started very, very young and ended relatively old, I'm guessing?
He started very young and ended up well into his 30s. His father, of course, had been captain of Rangers, and they tried to persuade the father to influence Ronnie Simpson to sign for Rangers, and he said no. And I think I read somewhere he lost a job as a scout because he wouldn't direct the boy to Ibrox, even though he had been their captain. He won 2 FA Cup medals for Newcastle United, played for them until 1960, then he went to Hibs. He was the oldest player to make a debut for Scotland when he played for Scotland in 1967. He played in the Olympics, I think it was 1948. Matt Busby was the manager and picked him as the goalkeeper for the Olympic team. He would be about 15 or 16 at the time.
He'd won 2 FA Cups with Newcastle and he didn't get capped for another decade.
No.
These are strange times.
I know.
Right. So when does he arrive at Celtic Park?
My first memories of when he was actually playing for Hibs. When I started going to the games, I went one afternoon. My dad was going on his own, as you know, he'd been a referee. He didn't always go to the games. We went to see them play the Hibs, and Ronnie Simpson was pretty outstanding playing for the Hibs that day. Celtic had won the game. Then a couple of weeks later, they drew in the cup, and that was the game that really turned me on to football because I was fairly indifferent about it up till then. They drew one each at Celtic Park, and all I can remember is Ronnie Simpson defying the Celtics' attempts to equalise in the Scottish Cup quarter-final. Place was packed, and he was magnificent. And then Stevie Chalmers equalised with 5 minutes to go. Celtic won the replay. And that was when he first came into my consciousness. This small but very dynamic goalkeeper came. And of course, when he played for Hibs for a few years, and then Stein went to Hibs as manager, and he didn't fancy Ronnie Simpson. So he released him and let him go to Celtic. I think that Ronnie Simpson was ready to chuck the game, but at the last minute, Celtic were looking for a backup goalkeeper, and he went to Celtic. Then, of course, Stein came to Celtic literally months later, and I think he thought that his team was out there again. But John Fallon, I believe, played a really poor game against Rangers. We lost 2-1. And initially, Stein brought in a young boy called Kennedy, who was the reserve goalkeeper for the first game after that. But I don't know that he was overly impressed because, he didn't have a high opinion of goalkeepers, Jock Stein. So eventually he had to turn to Ronnie Simpson. And once Ronnie Simpson got in the team, he wasn't going back out of the team until his final injuries put an end to his career. But, he was a magnificent goalkeeper. Just a wee guy. Don't even remember him wearing gloves. Those were the days when they didn't have all that stuff.
Yeah.
But he was a clever goalkeeper. He could anticipate where people would put the ball. He was very, very athletic. Celtic had some glorious days when he was in goal, and he always contributed. You remember games where people scored goals, then you think there was a point in the game where Ronnie Simpson made a save that turned the game. So he didn't have a lot to do, but great concentration. He was also a very good distributor of the ball in those days.
Yeah.
He didn't just launch it up the park. So, I've seen some good goalkeepers, but I always thought he was a special goalkeeper, and he lasted so long and played many great games for different clubs. He was Player of the Year in 1967. 1967, as you know, was a
big year,
banner year, and he was the Player of the Year, Scotland's Player of the Year.
Only because Joe McBride got injured at Christmas, I'm guessing.
Yeah, possibly.
Possibly.
He would have scored 100 goals.
Yeah, so he'd been in the conversation. Fair play, Ronnie Simpson. He slots in as your goalkeeper, and in this fantasy 11, he's distributing the ball out to his fullbacks. Is he going left or right, and who is he going to?
Well, he would go right first, I think, to Danny McGrain. As you know, Danny McGrain was a unique player, even by Celtic standards. 7 league titles, 5 Scottish Cups and 2 League Cups. I didn't know until recently he also won the First Division at Hamilton. When he left Celtic, he went to Hamilton and won the First Division Championship. And as manager, he won the Forfarshire Cup. But Danny McGrain, I remember Danny coming into the team as a he's a young player, but he used to get the bus from Glasgow Cross, or Firth of Glasgow Cross, to Celtic Park when he was a young player going to training. And I remember sitting one night on the bus opposite him, and I'm sitting thinking, I know who you are, you don't know who I am.
Yeah.
You're a Celtic player, and I knew he was a good player because I'd seen him in the reserves a lot, but no one could have anticipated what a marvellous footballer Danny McGrain was.
In that situation, would he have been wearing like sporting gear? I mean, obviously it wouldn't be a modern tracksuit or anything, but you just knew who he was.
He was in civvies. There was a period from when he came into the team and settled into the team up until about the Argentina World Cup, when I would have said that given his position, which is never fullbacks aren't heralded the way other players are heralded, there was not a better footballer in the world in his position and relative to their own positions. There wasn't a better player in the world than Danny McGrain till he got that bad injury.
What was the injury?
He tackled his good friend, John Blackley, who played for Hibs, and he got an ankle injury, which just wouldn't heal. And he looked a simple enough thing, but he was out for, well over a year. Missed the World Cup, missed the disastrous season when Jock Stein's career was coming to an end as manager. But when he was at his very best, he was truly wonderful. And when he went on tour to play for Scotland and Brazil prior to the World Cup, the Brazilians were raving about him. They sort of nicknamed him the Scottish Brazilian. Right. He was a beautiful footballer. And he and Dalglish had almost like a telepathic understanding of how each other played together since they were boys.
Yeah.
But a more unassuming, quiet, modest person you would never meet. I mean, I met Danny McGrain and he was just a lovely wee man. But you look at him and you think, God, what a player you were. But he became a ferocious tackler. He didn't need to tackle when he was
fast,
young. He was so quick and he could read things and he would just run and take the ball off people. but he became a really hard player, strong tackler as well, to make up for his lack of pace. But he was always a brilliant footballer.
Must be something about facial hair, because whenever you play five-a-sides against someone with a beard, they're usually, even if they're minced, they're usually hard.
I don't know about that.
Okay, so are you going to work your way along the back four, or
I think so. I think that's how we'll do it. The centre-back would be Billy McNeill.
That was how Celtic became the first ever British team to win the European Cup. Billy McNeill and his magnificent men earned the thanks and admiration of their native Glasgow, Scotland, and the whole United Kingdom.
And I thought of all the other great centre-backs I've had, but you can't see past Billy McNeill if you saw Billy McNeill playing, because from the late 50s to the mid-70s, he was totemic in terms of Celtic Football Club. I do think there were games from sort of like 1970 to his retirement where he was susceptible to really pacey forwards.
Yeah.
And if you watch McNeill, any footage of McNeill, I think he always had trouble with his back, as if he was kind of stiff. So that was the type of forward he wouldn't like playing against. But when he was at his peak, from early 1960s to the end of the 70s, he was imperious, a magnificent centre-half. Read the game well. I don't remember him having to tackle too much because he was quite quick.
Yeah.
He could intercept. Fantastic in the air. It was a waste of time trying to throw crosses in against him, because all you could see Big Billy just jump, head it away, invariably find a man, score a lot of goals. He was just a tremendous player and iconic in terms of Celtic Football Club. So you can't really see past Billy McNeill.
Yeah, it's got to be there. Right, and who's his partner?
Roy Aitken.
Okay, first appearance in the show.
I thought Roy Aitken was a marvellous Celtic player. He was a great servant to the club. He played many, many outstanding games. Other players he had the odd off night, like I remember one night against Nottingham Forest, he made a couple of errors and we get knocked out the UEFA Cup, having drawn 0-0 away from home. But those games were remarkable because they were rare, because he was a stalwart. You could rely on Roy Aitken week in and week out to inspire the team, to drive them forward. And there were games that he literally won off his own back. He dragged them forward, made them win games that they had no right to win. I mean, I think it was the great John Rafferty wrote after the 4-2 game, the 10 men won the league.
Yeah.
He said that he would be prepared to wager that no player in the history of Celtic Football Club had played a greater 90 minutes than Roy Aitken.
In the 4-2 game?
Yeah. He was just a great player. He was a really great midfield player. He was young. I noticed at first that when he came into the team, he was at midfield. His early games, he played centre-back. I think they saw him as a centre-back. But then when they brought in Pat Stanton, they moved Roy Aitken forward into the midfield. And he was a colossus in the midfield. There's some great videos of him, particularly against the Rangers, of rampaging past people to score goals. And he had a great attitude. Never say die attitude. You hear Paul McStay or Tommy Burns talking about him, what an inspirational captain he was. For those guys to rate him. He went to Newcastle and St Mirren and he played at Aberdeen.
He won a cup at Aberdeen, didn't he, against us?
At Aberdeen, League Cup. But he just was a great, great player. And he played from 1973 to 1990. And that's a long time.
Well, a lot of Scotland caps as well.
Well, he had 51 caps for Scotland. I'm sure it's 51 or 57. We have written it down. But he had 16 under 21 caps. Now, that was interesting because that came at a period where he wasn't getting a game for Scotland and they were allowed to play an overage player.
Right.
Now, he was quite prepared to go, as did Tommy Burns, by the way. He was quite prepared to go and play for Scotland as an overage player. So he valued playing for Scotland.
Yeah.
Eventually get back into the team. But I thought he was the most underrated player in terms of Scotland. There were other guys getting games for Scotland who weren't as good as Roy Aitken.
Yeah, and didn't leave as much of a mark
in
the game, I've no doubt.
But it's nice to see that he's now back as an ambassador.
Yeah, I was pleased to see that.
So was I, because he was a great player.
It's one of the things with, you've got McGrain and Aitken here. If there's some ambiguity over the new away strip, Is it a Love Street homage or is it a different colour? I don't think anyone has a conclusive picture yet on Twitter. But if that kit is a Love Street homage, I think McGrain and Aiken should be forced into the studio for a photo shoot to try it on.
Yeah.
Because they are the guys that made it immortal. Right, okay, so fill our back four.
Tommy Gemmell.
Second half. Celtic still a goal down in spite of having had 90% of the game so far. They continued piling on the pressure, believing the reward must come before long. The Italians had the luck of old Harry this time. Then fullback Tommy Gemmell shot from 25 yards out. Gemmell's brilliant goal didn't put new heart into Celtic. The old one was good enough to beat anybody.
As you know, is famous for his goal-scoring exploits. But he was a really good fullback, very quick. Again, the speed meant he didn't need to tackle too often. You know, guys would try to outrun him, he'd just run away from him. And he was a good footballer. He was an intelligent footballer. I remember that came home really to me how good he was when he left and he came back as captain of Dundee when they won the League Cup, beating Celtic, and he played centre back and he marshalled the defence. You know, he knew how to play. He was an intelligent player for all his daft exploits of kicking people up the backside and things like that. He did quite eccentric. It's funny because I was at his debut. Celtic had lost 4-0 at Ibrox on New Year's Day, and they were due to play Aberdeen 3 days later at Aberdeen. And I don't think too many folk in St Bartholomew's supporters club were keen to go. I said I wanted to go. And apparently if a member wanted to go, he either had to hire a bus or provide the fare. So we ran a bus and they won 5-1. So about, it would be 7 months later, July, I was on my bike at Port Bannockton in the Isle of Bute. And I got off the bike to go and have a game of putting. And I see this guy in front of me with this girl. And I thought, that's Tommy Gemmell. Oh, so I played round behind him and then I said, excuse me, am I right in thinking you're Tommy Gemmell, plays for the Celtic? He said, yes. How did you know? And I said, I was there when you made your debut at Aberdeen. Well, yeah, I said, yes. I said, I saw you playing the reserves a lot as well. I used to go to the reserve games. So he gave me his autograph. Gemmell was a brilliant player.
I do like that. The thing you've said about Gemmell and Aiken, I guess it doesn't happen as often in modern football. But the idea that a guy gets cut or, put out to pasture and he comes back to haunt you, I think that's so admirable that these guys did that. Mm-hmm. But, they clearly had some motivation to keep playing. And there probably is examples of it happening in modern football. I can't think of one.
Well, I was surprised last night to see the abuse that was being hurled towards Craig Gordon.
Yeah.
Because when he was asked, would he want the Hearts to win the cup, he said, aye. Well, why would he? He's playing for Hearts. What a stupid question. What a stupid reaction to be annoyed at him.
Yeah, you can only wish him all the best. Obviously, you don't want to lose. But. So there's our all-Scottish back four.
Yeah.
It looks extremely hard and extremely hard to get through. And let's move up to midfield. Midfield three. So how is that shaped? Is there someone protecting the back four? Or?
Yes, but it'll not be who you think it would be, because I know he can do it. Right midfield would be Paul McStay.
Okay, so let's talk about Paul McStay.
Well, Paul McStay was a child prodigy, really. When you think about him, he came into the team as a very young player and he was completely unfazed by it and was just a lovely, lovely footballer. His ability to master the midfield, and control the ball, control the direction of play was really quite unparalleled for a player so young at that time in Scotland. Good Scotland player, played well for Scotland, scored some really fine goals. And it was a shame that his only trophy as captain was the Scottish Cup under Tommy Burns. Because, after that, his injuries led him to chuck the game. But he had some really good years in the early 80s with that team with Burns and Provan and McLeod and Aiken and these people, where they won several titles and several Scottish Cups. And he was a crucial part of it for such a young player. He played some marvellous games against the Rangers. He knew what it meant coming from that family to play against Rangers, and he was never found wanting. against them. Even in games where we lost, you could never turn around and say, well, Paul McStay didn't play very well. The standard was so high from an early age. I was watching that wonderful Schoolboys International again last week when they scored the 2 goals for Scotland against England and they won 5-4, packed Wembley. He was a brilliant player. He was a lovely player. I mean, who could forget the pass to Chris Morris, the way he turned, left the whole Rangers midfield going away for a bag of chips, slides the pass through. Brilliant footballer.
The strange thing about watching him on YouTube, because that's all we have now, is how many goals in those YouTube videos I realised saying, "Oh, I was at that game. Oh, I was at that game." And this isn't peak McStay. This is early 90s. We're rubbish basically, but you've still got McStay dragging the team. Curling one in against the Hibs, scoring an overhead kick against someone. I can't remember who it was, but it's in the videos and I was at the game. The Cologne comeback. I think he gets one of the 3 goals in that. He even when he was bad, he was still better than most. Or even when we were bad, he was brilliant. He was great.
I think that was in a sense that was the saddest thing about his career. He was never bad.
Yeah,
he played in some pretty crappy teams, and he played in teams that didn't have a lot of luck. The Tommy Burns team didn't really carry a lot of luck. It was just class. Well, the sitter for me would be Bobby Murdoch. Now, Bobby Murdoch was very much the driving force and the playmaker of the Lisbon team, but he could play in that holding role if he wanted. And when he went to Middlesbrough, that's where he played, dictated the game from that sitting position just in front of the back four, picking the ball up, moving it on, long passes, short passes, great control, and he could tackle. Despite what Eamon Dunphy claimed in his books, he was a hard guy. You'll hear Celtic players saying he was the hardest tackler. I've heard other Celtic players saying that Stevie Chalmers was the hardest guy, but Bobby Murdoch was the hardest tackler.
There is no photo I have shared throughout the world to people from every walk of life other than the photo where Alex Ferguson has, I think he's stuck an elbow on Billy McNeil and McNeil's on the ground, and it's just a still photograph. But it's the great. It's better than the Muhammad Ali standing over whoever it was he was standing over. For me, it's a better photograph because Murdoch's doing nothing in the photo other than looking at him.
Yeah.
And Ferguson has his 2 hands in the air like a guilty criminal, and the policeman's got a gun on him. It's like, I didn't touch him. And you can just
what have I done here?
Yeah.
It was a
You
marvelous.
can see how hard it is because we live in this world where people are scared of Alex Ferguson. Well, here's a guy that Alex Ferguson was blatantly scared of.
Yeah, he was really great. So, when we were young, we moved to Castleknock and we were in St Bartholomew's Parish. And St Bartholomew's Parish was right at the boundary between Castleknock and Rutherglen. Rutherglen was in Lanarkshire. Castleknock was technically in Glasgow. And he used to come to Mass at St Bartholomew's because he just lived across the road in Croftfoot. So I kind of knew his brother, Billy. His brother used to play football on a Sunday down in a park down in Rutherglen. And we used to go down and play. I didn't know him well, but I knew who he was. But you'd see Bobby Murdoch at church and you use a Celtic player and you'd sit thinking, oh, that's Bobby Murdoch. So this is the truth. I used to sit and write on my jotters, the cover of the jotter, Bobby Murdoch. It's Bobby Murdoch. He was my hero. Right from when he was a very young player. There was just something about the way he moved, the way he carried himself. And, he played inside forward for maybe the first 3 or 4 years of his career. And it was only when Jock Stein came, he moved him back to wing half. And apparently Sir Robert Kelly, who knew everything and nothing about football, he said he's not a wing half. And Jock Stein says, you'll see tonight that he's a wing half. It was a semi-final replay against Motherwell. He moved him back to right half. And he was magnificent. He just ruled the midfield that night, and Celtic won the replay, went on to win the cup, and he played right half ever after, just controlling the midfield with Bertie Auld as his lieutenant. And what a passer of the ball he was. That lovely story about giving the ball to Jenkins, he's give me the ball, and he says, we'll never get it back. When I'm finished with it. But he was another one who knew what it meant to play against their enemy. Some tremendous goals, tremendous performances. And he stood up to the hardest guys the Rangers time and again. I mean, I remember John Gregg. John Gregg was a great player for Rangers, no doubt about it. But I remember once Murdoch went through him. Absolutely nailed him in the midfield, come out with the ball, and you think he's a hard guy. He was also a brilliant footballer.
Yeah.
You see him at Lisbon. You watch the Lisbon film. He was injured. He plays most of the game with his left foot.
Yeah.
But his right foot was hurt. That's how good he was. He could play with both feet. So I could see him sitting in there running the game.
Yeah, excellent. And who completes the midfield?
Nakamura.
Inside Rugby Park, watching at home, watching in pubs and clubs, watching around the world, holding their breath. If anyone can do it, he can. Nakamura, he has done it! Isn't that just typical? What a way to win the title, and how fitting that the goal should be scored so late and should be scored by Shinsuke Nakamura. They've had to wait for the title, but good things come to those who wait. Celtic champions.
First appearance in the show.
Nakamura, because I always thought that's where he should have been playing. I thought Gordon Strachan, much as you loved Nakamura, he clearly loved him. I never thought he played in the right position.
Yeah.
He's running the show from the midfield. And he was just a joy to watch. I never get tired of watching Nakamura. He was so graceful, not a bit of badness in him. You couldn't see him. Once I think he lost his temper and pushed a guy that fouled him. But he was such a graceful player. And he scored some wonderful goals. He was a joy to watch.
This is where I can come in as a relative expert, because Strachan's last season was the year I moved to Glasgow and went to every single game. So although it's a horrible season because we win nothing, well, we actually win the League Cup, but we bottled the league. I saw every minute of Nakamura that season. The guy was phenomenal, absolute genius. That the one that would jump out for me is, and again, talking about where he should have played, was the Christmas game when we were down 2-0 against Dundee United. And Strachan panics and just says, right, son, off the leash. And Nakamura just did what he should have been doing. Yeah. He just said, right, we're not losing this. And we got it back to a 2-2 draw, and he scores the goal of the season, lobbing the keeper from the left-hand side. Just stand wedge, little Phil Mickelson over the keeper.
Yeah.
One of the best goals I ever saw.
Yeah, brilliant.
And Nakamura's goal collection, whether it be set pieces or just drives from the edge of the box, or even clever little 1-2 tiki-taka goals that he finishes and buries.
Dundee United at Dundee, when he scored the hat-trick.
The hat-trick, yeah.
A couple of those goals were quick movements.
He was just an absolute treat.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, I absolutely loved Nakamura.
He turned up, on the big occasions against Manchester United and teams like he turned up, he delivered goals. I remember reading that Strachan, I actually heard Strachan tell this story on the radio, and he said that Nakamura was puzzled as to why he only ever get 5 stars in the papers, whereas Barry Ferguson get 8 stars every week. So we were trying to explain to him how things worked in Scotland. He says, but there was one game in particular. He said the players stood and applauded him when they came in at the end of the game.
Yeah.
He gave a masterclass of midfield mastery. He said, so his son, as you know, has now become the Celtic coach.
Yeah.
So he was still playing at the time. And Strachan said to the guy who does the video work, get me a copy of that, get me that in disc. And he sent it to his son. He said, this is a masterclass on how to play midfield. And in the paper the next day, Nakamura get 4 stars. That just shows you how appreciated he was by these cretins in this country.
Yeah, ridiculous. No, such a good player. And you look at where his stock was when he came. He was probably the highest ever ranked Celtic player. The FIFA Ballon d'Or and stuff. And obviously that's skewed, and big in Asia isn't really big in the world. But he was genuinely a superstar. There was no. If you're the best footballer in Asia, you're pretty damn good.
Uh-huh.
And he definitely was. Oh, we were lucky to have him. I wish he'd gone out with a league title. It'll always bother me. It'll always annoy me. Okay, so moving up front, we've definitely got goals in that midfield, but who are the responsibility for getting even more of them is definitely the front three. Is it a right, left, centre, or what's happening here?
It's like a right, centre, left, I suppose so.
Okay, so which side do you want to start on?
Right wing, right side, with Jimmy Johnson.
Celtic turning the screw now a bit. Another good save by Junquera. Up to Johnson. Johnson gives the impression now of thoroughly enjoying this. Sop round the ankle. Standing on the ball. Suddenly picking up gear. Past one man, past two. That's a despairing tackle. Hento, one of the great names in European football. Serena again though. And Celtic defence just managed to get it away. Johnson back very deep. Real really have no answer when he runs at them. They don't see this too much in European football. Johnson going right. Oh, I'll pass through to Lennox. Lennox shoots and scores. Faint-hearted appeal for offside, but he beat the trap. 1-0. Johnson again, he was really three-quarters the maker of this goal. Just when it looked as if he might drift right, he slits open the defence and Bobby Lennox just slides it along the ground past the keeper. Timed his run perfectly. I think Real are just baffled about what this wee fella's doing. Oh. And Celtic get a corner.
I thought long about this one, that he was truly a genius. When he was at his very best, he was the best in terms of attacking play in this country. You know, he demonstrated that on more than one occasion against great teams across Europe. You know, he destroyed Leeds United, Red Star Belgrade. He tore Real Madrid apart in the Stephanos testimonial. You watch him in the final against Inter Milan, and he was a real threat early on in the game. Time and again, he threatened to score, and he stuck fear into defenders. It was funny because I was telling one of the guys at the golf that we were doing this, and we were talking about players, and he said that his son had said to him, "Don't keep going on about that Jimmy Johnson. We know he was a Tanner ball player. He'd never been any good in the modern age." Rubbish.
Yeah.
Because these players, like, you know, Murdoch and Johnson, with modern training and modern coaching, modern pitches, and they'd have been stars just as much as they were then. I mean, you see the conditions they played in and played under, and the hammer throwers that were allowed to kick lumps out of them. You know, he would be a star now as he was a star then. That was one of the things I was going to say about Murdoch when we were thinking about it. Under modern day health and diet and training, he would have lasted a lot longer at the very, very top. His weight was the problem. You know, he had problems with his weight, but with a modern approach, he would have lasted forever. But Jimmy Johnson would have been a star in any age. And there's the one thing I am disappointed is how little footage there really is of how great he was. You see these wee bits in his first cup final where he turns a couple of times and wee daft bits, the odd penalty. But he was a formidable presence. You know, he was a great player. When you watch Messi, Messi's got a heart like a lion.
Yeah.
You know, no one intimidates him. Jimmy Johnson was the very same. And his skill levels were a very, very advanced level as well.
Yeah.
A brilliant player.
The famous goal when he cuts in from the right against the Huns, I think it's at Ibrox, maybe Hampden, I'm not sure. And he just hits a shell with his left foot. You know, that's one of the few bits of footage that really jumps out as, oh my God, you know, that's phenomenal. And that would be the tip of the iceberg. I'm sure he was doing that every other week.
Well, he tormented defences. And he would deliberately just dribble around people. You know, if you're winning 2-0 with 15 minutes to go, you just give Jimmy the ball, away we would go. Yeah.
There's also a great goal. They did a game, I remember it was on one of the 90s Celtic videos where before they tore down the old Celtic Park, they had one last game. I think it was basically Celtic 67 v Man United 68. Yes. So it was an old boys match. Right. Although stunningly to think that, you know, we lived in a time when Jimmy Johnson was still young enough to kick a ball, you know, and he scores a wonder dink in that. He gets put through inside right and lobs the keeper. You know, as a little old man, Jimmy Johnson. But I mean, obviously it's a bounce game, really, but still magic.
I remember some of the reserve players when he was briefly on the coaching staff. You know, the Celtic gave him a job in the coaching staff, and they were saying that it was just a treat at training. You couldn't get the ball off him. Even as you say, as a slightly older guy who wasn't fit, he just had utter mastery of the ball. And I remember he played against England a couple of times, and in both games he was a standout. The number of caps he got compared to others who were nowhere near as good as him was really astonishing. But he scored 2 wonderful goals in a game just before the World Cup, when England won the World Cup. I think they beat Scotland 4-3, and Denis Law put him through, and he scored 2 brilliant goals.
This is Gemmell. Johnstone having to come back for it, which slows up the momentum of the attack. Low now to Johnstone. He should score. He has done. A beautiful ball from Law to Johnstone, and it's 3-2 now with 11 minutes of the second half gone. Free kick to Scotland, who trail 4-2. Baxter. Johnstone, who scored. And Jimmy Johnstone has scored Scotland's third with 10 minutes to go.
And then he would be dropped because that's what they did. They just left him at the team.
Yeah.
And he didn't like playing for Scotland. He was aware of the abuse that he got, curiously, from the Rangers crowd.
Yeah.
They tend not to support Scotland nowadays. But in those days they did. And he didn't like it because he got abuse. And I remember reading in his book that Denis Law was a great supporter of him. Denis Law used to keep telling him what a great player you are, because he had a wee bit of an inferiority complex at times. But was it Hugh McIlvanney said he added to the gaiety of nations because he was such a comical wee figure, There was that time when Stein took him off and he was unwise enough, I think, to hurl some expletives at Stein as he was going up the tunnel. Stein went after him. And he says he locked himself in the toilet. But he don't hit me. Stein was going to banjo. Yeah, he was a comic, he was a character. When Stein came, he had a list of players he was prepared to release, and one of them was Jimmy Johnson. And in the first cup final, Johnson didn't play. And there's this story about him playing for the reserves, and Stein had come into the toilet, and he was in the toilet, and he says to him, "What are you doing in here? What are you doing in the reserves? You need to show me you've got more than you've got." And he says from that moment on, he started to reevaluate what he was, and he became a better and better player till he became Jimmy Johnson.
A guy that Puskás and Di Stefano are asking to have a photograph with.
He was third in the Ballon d'Or in 1967. That's how highly he was rated.
Okay, who have you got on the left?
The left would be Kenny Dalglish.
Good header by McNeil. Wilson trying to find Dalglish. That's cleared only as far as Danny McGrain. McGrain trying to put the pressure back on. Again, he's got Murray on his right. McGrain shoves it through towards Dalglish. McGrain back to Dalglish. Dalglish flicking it in. The goal is given. Dalglish has scored and has equalised for Celtic in the 12th minute of the second half. And no player deserves it more. A beautifully worked goal. Ball stopped waiting for a flag or a whistle. It never came. Danny McGrain sticking it through. Ball not getting it away. Dalglish obviously onside. Ball didn't realise that he was. Flicked it in beautifully, right-footed, into the far corner of the net. And it's 2-2. Kenny Dalglish the scorer. Because he was just a wonderful player. You can't see past Kenny Dalglish. I mean, there were other players that I liked better, that it was really hard to leave out. But when you look at his career, look what he achieved, even looking back at the video material of his time with Celtic, he was fabulous. Fabulous player. I mean, Stephen Murray wrote that book, Dalglish of the Celtic, and he merited it because too many people see him as Dalglish of Liverpool.
Yeah.
And I was quite pleased that programme that was on recently about his life on Sky documentaries. Obviously, a lot of it was about Liverpool and everything that went on there, but they had a significant chunk about him as a Celtic player. And at the end, when they were doing the wee montage at the end, there was a lot of Celtic goals in it because he was a great, great footballer. I remember the first game I saw him was a reserve game at Airdrie. Jimmy Johnson was, for some reason, dropped, and he was playing for the reserves at Airdrie, and he was playing right half, midfield, and I come home and I was at a golf later on in the week with my friend Joe Curran, and I says, there's a boy playing for the reserves. What a player he is. He's going to be a star. And he was. He's just a thoroughbred. And that programme, if you get a chance to watch it, the Sky documentary, you see him playing for Liverpool, surrounded by all those great players.
What would you say was his finest goal for the Celtic that you saw?
I remember he scored a fantastic volley at Tannadice. He rifled it in. But I was watching it again last week. He scored some amazing goals. He was such control of the ball. You know, he just mastery of the ball in the same way that you see top players. He sending the ball at any height or any angle, just mastery. And he had a tremendous telepathic understanding with McGrane. You saw it in the international team as well. McGrane would go up the wing and ball into the Dalglish goal.
They were good pals, weren't they?
They were, yeah. I think all the Quality Street team were pretty close. I remember playing golf at Letham Hill one day, and Dalglish and Paul Wilson and Victor Davison were playing in front of me. So I just pottered along behind them, knowing who they were.
Years later, I would follow Kenny Dalglish and Johan Cruyff around Carnoustie.
Yeah.
Although I have to admit, in that situation, I was so hypnotised by staring at Cruyff that I almost forgot Dalglish was there, just because that's the way I was. But yeah. They were probably equals thinking about it now.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a big difference between Letham Hill Public and Carnoustie in a pro-am.
Yeah. Right, so who's going to complete your front three? I'm guessing the King of Kings, Henrik Larsson.
Indeed, Henrik Larsson.
That's a good layoff. Larsson with the reverse pass for Hartson. Henrik Larsson again! Larsson has scored! And is that the goal which takes Celtic to the UEFA Cup final? It's Larsson's 40th goal of the season. It's 2-1 Celtic overall.
I mean, you were definitely an early adopter for identifying just how good Larsson was. You know, I don't know if halfway through the second season under Venglos, when he's on his way to scoring 47 goals, he's scoring 4 away at Motherwell and a hat-trick every other home game. He really was, he went nuclear that second season.
I thought that when I saw the headed goal at St Johnstone, remember
the diving header, so yeah, it's first
goal. He
goal.
Starts the move, passes it out to the wing, launches himself like a rocket, and I thought, this guy's special. Ordinary players don't do things like that. He was brilliant. Henrik was just Henrik.
I think one of my, again, personal favourite moments of witnessing him was again at McDermott Park. And I think it was just a random Saturday afternoon league game, in a mad world where Saturday kickoffs were 3 o'clock at an away game, which would be fantastic to bring back. But now they're moved for TV. And we were, I think 1-1 with seconds to go. And we got a free kick in the edge of the box. And Larsson wasn't the best free kick taker. His ratio for goals to free kicks efforts was probably pretty low. But I was lucky enough that I was behind the goal on this occasion as he just whipped it up and down into it would have been the keeper's side, but he hit it so well that it wasn't getting saved. And just classic last minute goal, bonkers, absolute bedlam.
Do you remember the game at St Johnstone, the night Stillian Petrov broke his leg? He scored a goal that night, remember?
Yeah, header. It
was a very important goal. He has scored so many goals, Henrik Larsson, though. I still think the best one was the one against Dundee United in the Cup semi-final.
Sutton looking to get him round the back, and he has done. Larsson! Oh, yes! It looked an almost impossible angle, but nothing is impossible for Henrik Larsson, who finally equals Charlie Nicholas's record of 48 goals in a season.
Well, for starters, I didn't think Sutton was going to get the cross in because DeVos was well positioned. But how Larsson managed to get across the front of Laughlin, how many times have we seen him do that this season? Laughlin thinks he's in control of the situation. Larsson comes blindside, enough pace in the ball. All he has to do is change the angle on it. A magnificent finish. Paul Gallagher won't be happy at being beaten at his near post, but such was the pace on the header that you can't really blame him. And Celtic at last get the breakthrough that you'd have to say they deserve so far.
Sutton chased the ball from Mjällby and whipped it across. He scored with a header that no one had any right to score.
It's the greatest header of the ball in football history.
It was.
That particular one was, you couldn't, the physics, the science, the effort, the imagination, the guts. He had no right to score that goal.
The thing that I liked about him, and it became clear to me after he left, and when he was leaving Barcelona, someone asked Sammy A2 a question. Did you learn anything from playing with Henrik? He said, I learned to become invisible in the box. And when you watch Henrik, he scores so many goals, but he's absolutely on his own. No one's near him. And you think, 3 seconds ago, a defender thought he had you in his pocket.
Yeah.
But when the ball came over, he was on his own. That was his gift.
I remember the last game at Ibrox in the whitewash season. I was at university watching it with some pals, and I think Alan Thompson whipped in a free kick from the left. Larson scores a regulation header. And admittedly, we were beating them 5 times out of 5 that season, so I was getting a little bit blasé. And I think my mates jumped up and said, well, why not celebrate? And it was just like, it's just a Larson header.
He does.
If you're going to get me off my chair, it has to be a Chris Sutton dink from 25 yards. A Larson header does nothing for me at this point.
That's not true. Any goal against Rangers is...
Yeah, of course. Right, so a team made up of 9 Scots and 2 fantastic foreigners going to take some beating. It's in the show so far, it's arguably the strongest team, but then you've got time on your side and options.
European Cups,
yeah, a few Champions Leagues. All right, so even Dalglish has got one, Larson's got one, Jinky's got one, Murdoch's got one. Only Nakamura and McStay and McGrain.
Right.
So, but they certainly, and Aiken, Roy Aiken, of course. So, yeah, plenty of European Cups and Champions Leagues in this team.
Also, an interesting number of captains, guys who captained the club.
Yeah.
McGrain, McNeil, Aiken, McStay, Dalglish.
Nakamura should have been the captain. I don't care if he doesn't speak a word of the Queen's. Get out of his feet.
I believe he spoke more than he let on.
I don't believe that.
Apparently like to keep the interpreter on a job.
Right, so if we were to add to this 11, or if you could pick a player that we never signed that you think would have been a great sell, that's how we end the show every week. Who's the one that got away?
Robert Prozinecki.
Right, so Yugoslav and Croatian midfielder Robert Prozinecki.
Played for Barcelona.
Played for Real Madrid.
He did too. But we saw him playing against, in a friendly against Celtic. And he played the night, we played
Croatia Zagreb.
Zagreb, used to be Dinamo Zagreb. And he was playing that night. He could have sat in an armchair that night. He just controlled the midfield. I know he was a great smoker, but it wouldn't have surprised you if he'd lit one up. And I mean, we had good players in the team at the time.
Yeah.
Lambert was there. And
Lambert and Burley should have been at the peak of their powers, yeah.
Lubo would have been there.
Lubo hadn't signed.
How do you know?
No, he came.
No, he came later on. That's right. It was Dr. Joe's season. Yeah. But they had good players that had won the league the year before and qualified to play in the Champions competition. But he controlled the midfield. Yeah.
Yeah, Robert Prozinecki was a phenomenal player. In the grand scheme of things, a guy probably underachieved, which probably make the reason why he's probably a realistic target for us at certain points in his career. Yeah. But he's also, there's no footballer on YouTube that advertises the difference between football then and football now. Because the way that Red Star Belgrade team and the way that Yugoslavia team played is so strange. And that not only did they have Robert Prozinecki dropping deep to take the ball and really just run around until he got tired, like just making people look like mugs. They had Dejan Savicevic next to him doing the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how these guys ever played in the same team, because it's a surreal watch now where basically they would come to the centre circle, get the ball, and just sprint, like basically Jimmy Johnson it, but in no particular direction. And they would just tease people and wind them up. And then ultimately, they'd get caught in possession or they'd make a chance. But it's a very strange way. Football might get played like that now down the wings if you're a really special talent like a Messi or a Ronaldinho. But nobody's doing that down the middle now, or has done in the last 20 years.
No.
And those two guys were doing it. And
So
Prosinecki was exceptionally good at it.
When we saw him, he was kind of approaching the end of his career, wasn't he?
But even then, yeah, that is what he did. He came and took the ball and then just...
More of a midfield general in the games that we saw.
Well, that's because he was playing against guys that were probably too scared to go near him, because they'd realised pretty early on that he was going to tie them in knots.
Uh-huh.
The night against Barcelona in the friendly, you saw how, because that was the Barcelona B team, and it still had Ivan De La Peña and Robert Prosinecki coming to just showboat basically. Yeah. And then he came back in the Croatia Zagreb team and put us to the sword.
The only good thing came out of that game was Mark Viduka.
Or then Marko Viduka. Dropped that O as soon as he arrived. Yeah. And I learned recently he has settled in Zagreb running a cafe.
I saw that.
Never bothered going back to Australia. He just liked the idea of sitting in front of a cafe, drinking espressos and getting fat, which, why wouldn't you?
Well, that's my team.
That is an excellent team. Thanks for doing the show, Lachie.
A pleasure.
And anyone else who wants to come on the show can reach out via Twitter at Antony Murray 25. More than happy to hear from people from all generations, younger and older, to see what teams they put together. Thanks for listening. Hail, hail.
This podcast was brought to you by Supersound.